Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the To The Point podcast. Hope you all had a great weekend. I know I did with some great college football action on Saturday and my great conversation with Adam Beers. If you haven't heard that, please check that out on all our social media platforms and on Apple Podcasts. And of course, the start of Week 13 in the NFL yesterday. We saw some great games, some great performances, and a couple possible close upsets, but I want to start today talking about the game me and Adam really talked about the most, or two teams that we focused on, and that's the Cleveland Browns and the Tennessee Titans. Yesterday, we saw the Browns beat the Titans 45-38. It was a great game. Well, it wasn't really a great game. That's Freudian slip there, but it was a game where we saw Cleveland jump out to an early lead, and really something that me and Adam didn't predict, but I did tell him that the Cleveland Browns are better than people give them credit for. So I'll pat myself on the back a little bit. But the Browns had a great day. Baker Mayfield had 4 touchdown passes in the first half, which is the first time Browns quarterback has done that since 1951 when Otto Graham did it. He played great. 4 touchdown passes to four different receivers, which is way more impressive in my opinion. He also had a touchdown to an O lineman, which I love to see. Kalen Lamb made a 1-yard touchdown catch. I like the big man Ballin or big man touchdowns. I love to see that. But the bigger point of the game to me was that Cleveland had a big win on the resume. You know, they had beaten the Colts. That's a good win to put on your resume. But to beat the Titans is really something that puts them on the map. They have 2 games. They have 4 games left, but 2 games on their schedule are against division opponents with Baltimore and Pittsburgh. Those are big games too, as kind of to see where they stand. But this game proved something to me. It proved that they can win without having a great rushing attack, and it also proved that Baker Mayfield is not just a game manager. I think that he can be a game manager and they can win and they can go to the playoffs and do some damage. But he proved some doubters wrong yesterday. A lot of people don't like Baker Mayfield, and I think there's one specific reason for it. It's because he has that Johnny Manziel effect where he's braggadocious, he's very confident, he's in a lot of TV commercials, which people seem to have a problem with. A guy making money, but he backed it up yesterday, and he looked great. He threw a pass to Donovan Peoples-Jones for a 72-yard touchdown. Jarvis Landry, I mentioned the big man Ballin touchdown, but he just looked precise. He didn't look worried. He has a great O-line, so they protect him very well. So do the Titans on the other side of the ball. But the Cleveland Browns are a very good football team. They have a good defense, not great, but good. So to look at the game, it started off opening drive. They got a Cody Parkey kicked a 36-yard field goal, 3-0. Then their next possession, they stopped Tennessee on a 3-and-out. Next possession, they should have had a touchdown, but Donovan Peoples-Jones dropped a touch. It was in his hands, dropped the ball. It was tough for him. But then the game started to switch. We saw Cleveland starting to get touchdowns. They went their next drive after the field goal. They got a touchdown to Jarvis Landry, and then the next play, Derrick Henry fumbles the football. It's his first fumble in over 300 rushing attempts. So it was last year against Indy. So it was over a calendar year since his last fumble. But they turned that into Sheldon Richardson got the ball out, and they turned that into 7. So it was 17-0 at this point. But after that, we saw Tennessee strike back quick. They got a touchdown. Their next drive, Ryan Tannehill was it wasn't a Derrick Henry drive. It was Ryan Tannehill threw a 40-yard pass to A.J. Brown. He found Corey Davis, who made a great catch in the back of the end zone. But after that, the Cleveland Browns didn't get worried. They never left their foot off the gas at that point. Their next play, they got a touchdown to Donovan Peoples-Jones, who was a player that they drafted in the late rounds out of Michigan, who was a great special teams player. But he was the only receiver on the field. He was out right in the right hash, and he blew by the corner and right to the end zone. So 24-7, eventually it's 31 and then 38-7 at the half. So it looks like a complete blowout. And Cleveland was just rolling. They didn't really have to rely on their run game in the first half. They had a Baker Mayfield threw for 296 yards, 4 touchdowns, 20 for 25. He had pretty close to a perfect half. He didn't make any bad decisions with the ball. He ran for a first down. He doesn't really like to do that, but he scrambled, got a first down. I think he'll be the AFC Player of the Week just based on that first half, but he played great. Tennessee rallied in the second half. Tannehill, he played pretty well. He threw another 2 touchdown passes. He had one in the first half, like I mentioned. He threw another one to Michael Pruitt and another one to Ferkser, the other tight end. So they made it close at the end. They scored with 30 seconds left, but a lot of that is teams when in the NFL, when you have a big lead, it's like in hockey, you will occasionally give up a couple goals when it's 6-1, it becomes 6-3, and it makes it look like a closer game when really it isn't. That was this game. Tennessee scored with 28 seconds left, and the odds of getting an onside kick are slim to none. So Cleveland won this game pretty handedly, and they should feel really encouraged. They are 9-3. They're the 4th seed in the AFC. So, the 5th seed in the AFC. They're behind Pittsburgh in the division by 3 games. So it's unlikely that they'll win the division, but they'll be the top wildcard team. So they'll get a favorable matchup in the postseason. If it started today, they would be playing the Titans again. So that would be interesting. But yeah, they look like a good football team, and Tennessee, they struggled because their defense just doesn't bring enough to the table. They got news before the game that Jadeveon Clowney, a former first overall pick who's really been a bust, he's out for the season with an ankle injury. He was originally drafted by Houston first overall, and he looked like he was going to be a dominant player of the league, but just inconsistencies and injuries have really ruined his career, and he might be done in the league. But they don't generate consistent pass rush, and they make a lot of mistakes on the back end of their defense. They need to tighten that up. I think they can score with the best of teams. They have A.J. Brown. They still have Derrick Henry, who only ran for 60 yards yesterday because they were just so far behind. And when you get that far behind, you can't run the ball because it just chews clock faster. But A.J. Brown is emerging as a top 5, top 10 receiver in the NFL. Corey Davis has really stepped up. They were without their starting tight end yesterday, Jonnu Smith, who's right up there with great tight ends. So they have the pieces, but being that, coming into week 14 for them, it's going to be difficult for them to get better because they can't upgrade their team. They're stuck with who they have. And I don't know. Yesterday just worried me because they lost. They were down 38-7 at the half at home, to Cleveland, who I think is a real good team. But, on paper, Tennessee should have won that game. Every major analyst had Tennessee winning that game, but kudos to Cleveland. They have Baltimore a week from today on Monday Night Football, which should be an interesting contest. Baltimore has been struggling. They're 6-5. They play tomorrow night against the Cowboys, so they'll be on a short week. But I think that they'll beat Baltimore on a week from today. They'll beat them. They'll finish second in division just because Pittsburgh has a 3-game lead, and they need Pittsburgh to really fall on their face here, which I don't see them doing. But if they could play Tennessee or Indianapolis, the winner of the AFC South will likely finish last or fourth, like to be the 4th best division. So if they can keep that 5th seed, they keep it from Indy and Miami right now, they'll be in good shape. They're just really, really a deep team. I like their team. I think they'd be more of a threat if they still had Odell Beckham Jr. But if Baker Mayfield can play that consistently, they can go toe-to-toe with anybody, in my opinion. At least win a playoff game. If they play Tennessee again, maybe Tennessee makes some adjustments. I think that'd be a good rematch. But, they've beaten them once. Why can't they beat them again? So if they play them, they've beaten Tennessee or Indy. So the winner of that division, they will already have a win against. So if everything stays the same, they'll go into the playoffs feeling good about themselves and confident that they'll beat whoever they play because they've already done it. So just kudos to the Cleveland Browns. They've been a doormat of the NFL for so long, and it's good to see them have some stability. They have their winning season for the first time in a long time, and they just look like a good team. They should be worried. Like teams should be worried about facing them. So for Tennessee, like I said, they have a tough road ahead. They didn't catch a break as they're now 8-4, tied with Indianapolis, who beat Houston yesterday, 26-20. But they have the head-to-head win, so they're still first in the AFC South. But it doesn't get easier. They have a tough schedule down the stretch, and Indy has an easier schedule, but I don't trust Indy to win big games. But a big one this coming weekend will be Indianapolis against the Las Vegas Raiders. They're both fighting for playoff position. The Raiders right now are 7-5 on the outside looking in, and if they lose that game, they might be out of it for the rest of the year. So that's a must-win really for both teams. But just to touch on the Raiders, yesterday they were looking great. They were really a dark horse to win the Super Bowl. I mean, they're the only team still this year to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, but they stink it up against the Atlanta Falcons. They turn the ball over 5 times. They lose 43-6. Really a game you got to win. The Falcons are 4-8. They've underperformed, and I think they're better than the record says, but still you got to come up with a better effort than that. So you think, okay, we just had a stinker. We got the Jets. Whew, we can breathe a little bit. We got the Jets. They stink. Well, they do stink still, but we'll just go in there. We'll beat their ass. We'll beat them down, and we'll grab a beer and head home. Yesterday, it was the farthest thing from an easy win. The Jets were leading for the majority of the game, and the Jets were looking like they were going to win their first game of the season. They're 0-11 coming in, and Vegas has one play left, 5 seconds on the clock, and Greg Williams, defensive coordinator for the Jets, he's a well-known guy because he used to be the defensive coordinator of the New Orleans Saints. He was defensive coordinator when they won the Super Bowl in 2009. And in the NFC Championship game, he was later suspended for a season because he put a bounty out on Brett Favre. He told his defensive players basically to hit Favre every time they could. They'd get extra money for doing it and to hurt him. He basically told his players to go out there and hurt Brett Favre. Hit him late. If you might get flagged, but that's okay. Like, we want him at the end of the game so that he can't do what he can do. And you can't specifically tell your players to injure another player. So, of course, he's got a checkered history, to say the least. So, last play of the game, and this is like a 46-yarder, so it's going to be a Hail Mary of sorts. It's basically a Hail Mary. But in these plays, it's pretty obvious. You drop people back into coverage. You don't blitz. You don't send safeties or linebackers on these plays because you want to have as many people back there as possible playing prevent defense so that if a ball is thrown up, you have more players to knock it down or to cover them. It's football 101. But Greg Williams, being the defensive coordinator genius that he is, decides to blitz on this play. And it doesn't work. The blitz gets picked up. They mark it off, and Derek Carr throws a 46-yard touchdown to Henry Ruggs III for the game-winning touchdown. It sealed the win for the Raiders. They had to have been thankful to get out of the Meadowlands with a victory, but this just is so New York Jets. It's a big cliche in sports that when teams are bad, they're tanking, they're, trying to lose. I don't believe that for a second. Greg Williams knows he's probably going to lose his job this offseason regardless. So why not try? Why would you want to be a part of an 0-16 team? Like, I remember the Toronto Maple Leafs when they were god awful when they got Austin Matthews first overall. It was known as the dignified tank because they were, trading players whenever they were playing well, and it was an ongoing joke. But there's still pride in the locker room. The Jets yesterday, Sam Darnold, you can't tell me he didn't want to win. He played well. He played great. But those Jets players, Marcus May after the game basically called out Greg Williams for the stupid play call. So these players have pride. They want to win desperately. And it was hard to see. It was so hard to see for the Jets because for the franchise, it's better that they get the first overall pick, that they lose the game so that they have the best odds to, if they don't win a game, they'll get Trevor Lawrence because it's not like the NHL and the NBA. There's no draft lottery. So if you finish last, you get the first overall pick. And Trevor Lawrence out of Clemson is the presumptive first overall pick. But it's just so disheartening to see a bad franchise just continue to do bad things. And seeing plays like that, if I was Trevor Lawrence, I don't want to go to the Jets. I don't have any interest in going there. They're a dysfunctional mess of an organization. I know they'll fire their coaches and do a lot of stuff before he's drafted, but I don't trust the owners to do the right thing in hiring a good coach. If they hired Eric Bieniemy, who I mentioned Saturday, who he might not be the brand name, but as a football mind, as an offensive guru, there's not going to be a better hire available this offseason. So if they got him and to run their program, maybe if I'm Trevor Lawrence, I'm like, okay, he's had Patrick Mahomes, he's done good things, he knows what he's doing. But the Jets are just a mess, and my advice to Trevor is just steer clear. Do what you have to do to not go to the Jets. If you have to do an Eli Manning or a John Elway, well, maybe you do it. Or the Jets draft you and you say, well, I'm not coming, and you call their bluff. But, a player should not just be drafted and then exiled to a really bad situation and their career goes to shit because that's just where the chips fall. You have to have some kind of license on your career, on your life. I mean, if you're playing quarterback, if you're playing any position and you get drafted and you're just going to get your head beat in and you're going to have no career, well, why not try to find a better landing spot for you? Tua went to Miami at 5th overall, and they look like they're improving. They're 8-4. They might make the playoffs. That's a way better situation. Joe Burrow went first to Cincinnati. He accepted that because he's from Cincinnati, but look, he tears his ACL, MCL, and LCL because they didn't have an offensive line to protect him. These teams, they're not smart in protecting their asset. If you get a first overall pick and you got a quarterback on cheap money, protect him. Try to win now before you have to pay him big money. At least improve. It's just astounding to me that these teams, bring their prize asset out. They finally get a first overall pick, these bad organizations, and they just send them to the Wolves. They make them throw 50 times a game. If you throw 50 times a game, guess what? Your ass is going to get hit and more than likely going to get hurt. Because even the toughest, biggest quarterbacks, Ben Roethlisberger, has gotten hurt tons over his career. He's a mammoth of a man. So just do what you can, but it's not right. Just Trevor Lawrence, don't go to the Jets. So pivoting from the Jets to a good organization, we saw the New Orleans Saints yesterday win a big game over division rival Atlanta Falcons. It was Taysom Hill's third start. He was okay his first 2 starts. He got the wins. He ran for 4 touchdowns in those games, but he hasn't really shown himself to be a great pocket passer, a stereotypical quarterback. Yesterday, he looked damn impressive to me. He threw for 236 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did fumble in the fourth quarter, but he was solid. He made some tough third down throws, and he looked confident. He's showing himself to be a quarterback that can play in the league. It's good to have Michael Thomas, probably the most sure-handed wide receiver in the NFL, but he's great. He's a good player. He's a lot of fun to watch because you don't know if he's going to throw, if he's going to run a quarterback power. He also ran for over 80 yards yesterday, so he threw for 236, ran for 83 on 14 carries. So he's just a different kind of quarterback, way different than Drew Brees, who's slower than a snail, but he's fun to watch. The Atlanta Falcons continued to be the biggest disappointment. I said that Saturday, and I picked them to win the game. I thought they almost did. They had the ball late in the game, but they couldn't pull it out. The Saints defense has been great this year, and they continue to be. So the Saints are now 10-2. They're first in the NFC. Drew Brees is eligible to come off injured reserve this Sunday, so Week 14 against the Philadelphia Eagles. However, if I'm the New Orleans Saints, I don't take him off IR and I start Taysom Hill next week. Now, I would bring Drew Brees back the following week or whenever he's 100%. Like if he can get an extra week, he's 41. Give him an extra week of rest. Taysom Hill will beat the Eagles. If he doesn't, then you have bigger problems. But give him an extra week of rest. Bring him back in for the final 3 games of the season. You get him those reps for the playoffs. You hopefully get a bye week. But you can get a break. You can do what you can do. But I would start Taysom Hill because he's going to win that game. You get some more experience. You can, I think this is Drew Brees last year in the NFL. So if Taysom Hill is your guy next year, this gives him more experience. You get more looks at him, and it's just a good idea, I think, on all fronts. And I think the team likes Taysom Hill, but obviously they love Drew Brees. But Taysom Hill is a popular guy in the locker room, so make him go 4-0 and hold Drew off until you really need him, and that'll be the playoffs. I don't trust Taysom Hill can win a shootout in the playoffs, but I've seen him play Atlanta twice and Denver. So he hasn't played the best teams. Atlanta and Denver are both 4-8. So he hasn't played a really tough opponent yet, but he's won the games he's had to win. You can only play who's on your schedule, and he's beaten he's beaten Atlanta twice, which is a division game, and to win on the road in Atlanta is an impressive win. So good on Taysom Hill. Last night, Sunday Night Football, we saw the Kansas City Chiefs improve to 11-1. Wasn't the prettiest of games. Denver really came up with a good game plan defensively. They limited Patrick Mahomes. They stopped him in the red zone 4 different times from scoring, keeping them to field goals. And this is just another example of what I was talking about. I don't think the Chiefs are a lock to win the Super Bowl. I think they're the favorite, but not a heavy favorite. They're a good team, but defenses in their division, like Denver and Vegas, have played them the hardest, which they're a division team. So I'll give it some credence to that. You play them twice. You can game plan. You can figure out tendencies to make you better the next time you play that opponent. But Denver is 4-8. They're not a great team. They don't have a very good offense, and they played them well. If Denver had a better quarterback, if they didn't have Drew Lock, Denver probably wins last night because the Chiefs got some pass interference calls. Went their way. The Chiefs really have become the Patriots when it comes to the referees. They get a lot of calls to go their way, in my opinion. And they benefit from being, the hottest team in the NFL, the defending champs. I think they get that respect from the officials, which they won, so good for them. But they can definitely be had. And this game, the only thing it might do is help Aaron Rodgers' MVP chase. Him and Patrick Mahomes really have been 1-2 in the race. He has 36 touchdown passes now. 3 yesterday. They beat the Philadelphia Eagles. I'll touch on the Eagles in just a second, but Aaron Rodgers has 36 touchdown passes. Mahomes has 31. Obviously, the Chiefs have a better record, 11-1, and the Packers are 9-3. But they both look great, but it might have helped Aaron Rodgers. I still think Patrick Mahomes is the MVP, but Aaron Rodgers is playing fantastic. He's got 36 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He's looked like the old Aaron Rodgers. Last year, I kind of felt he regressed a little bit, but they drafted a quarterback in the first round, and I think that pissed him off and it fueled him. So if that helped him from the organization, well, that's good. I think it's still a really stupid decision to draft Jordan Love out of Utah when they have Aaron Rodgers, but other than drafting a receiver to help them. But they're second in the NFC. They're a strong team. I don't trust them as far as I can throw them. Their defense leaves something to be desired, but they got the win yesterday. And Aaron Rodgers turned 37 this week. He had a good week, turned 37. He threw his 400th career touchdown pass. He's the fastest to that mark at 193 games. It's faster than Dan Marino, anybody, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, you name it. So that's pretty impressive. And he might win the MVP at age 37. So good on him. But their opponent in that game was Philadelphia Eagles. And it was halftime, it was 20-3. And it really just felt like a nothing game. The Philly was generating nothing offensively. Carson Wentz, their offensive line was still struggling. Carson Wentz wasn't playing well. And at the end of the third quarter, they finally made the switch to Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts, the rookie at Oklahoma, he was nominated for the Heisman Trophy last year. He started his career out at Alabama, and he transferred after he was replaced at quarterback. But drafted in the second round, surprising choice by Philly just because they had signed Carson Wentz to a 5-year, over $100 million extension. So to draft a quarterback that high is really rare, and it was kind of alarming. But after seeing the year Carson Wentz has been having, it does make some sense. I don't think it's 100% his fault. Of course, some of it is, but his offensive line has just been decimated. His receiving core is no good. He finally got Zach Ertz back yesterday, but he didn't look the same. It was tough, and he was good about it. On the sideline, he was cheering for Jalen, so I give him a ton of credit for being a good teammate and just kind of taking it on the chin. But Jalen came in, they threw a touchdown pass, then they got a punt return for a touchdown, so it kind of made it interesting. But Aaron Jones then on the next possession ran for a 77-yard touchdown with about 2:45 left in the game, and that iced it. And they won 30-16. So the Eagles are now 3-7-1. They're in tough. Sorry, 3-8-1. They're in tough. I don't know what they're gonna do. They made the switch in the third quarter. They have Carson Wentz under contract. If you plan on moving forward with him, I don't know how you start Jalen Hurts and plan on coming back with him the following year. I think Doug Peterson will be fired after this season. Maybe Howie Roseman, the GM, as well. They won a Super Bowl a few years back, but that only gives you so much grace period, and it just seems like Doug Peterson and Carson Wentz don't enjoy each other. So if Jeffrey Lurie, the owner, wants to move forward Carson Wentz, which is the easier thing than cutting him, then you have dead money on your cap, and it's tough because the salary cap is going to go down for the NFL just because of COVID and everything. So I would want to go for. I would want to try with Carson Wentz with a different head coach who might want to run the ball a little more, at least try, and give his quarterback, an offensive line that could protect him a little bit. But the Philadelphia Eagles are in a difficult spot now because they still could win their division. They're 2 games back after the Giants pulled off an upset yesterday over the Seattle Seahawks. But they're in a difficult decision here. They can go with Jalen Hurts, see what they got with the rookie, kind of plan for the future. But Carson Wentz is only 26. He's not like he's ancient. He does look different since he tore his ACL in 2017. He looks more timid. He used to play with a reckless abandon, and he doesn't do that anymore. So I think he's a little more tentative since his knee blew out, which can be that's fair. But I assume they will go back. They will go with Jalen Hurts this weekend against New Orleans. But I don't necessarily think it's the right decision. But Doug Peterson probably thinks he's coaching for his job, which I think he will be. And maybe he thinks Jalen Hurts gives them the best chance to win, just a different just different player on the field, different game plan, different offense. So Philly's in a tough spot. But the biggest upset of the weekend was by far the Giants beating the Seahawks. It was the first time an NFC East team, so that's Dallas, Washington, Philly, or the Giants, they beat a team with a winning record. First time this season that one of those four teams have beaten a team with a winning record. They beat the Seahawks yesterday in Seattle, 17-12. They, with Colt McCoy, I might add, a backup quarterback, Daniel Jones, is out with a hamstring injury. He only threw for 112 yards, but Wayne Gallman ran for 123. Alfred Morris, their backup running back, ran for a touchdown and had a receiving touchdown in the game. And it was just a weird game. We had like a safety, and it was 5-0 at one point, and it was just a strange. Seattle couldn't generate anything. DK Metcalf had a lot of receiving yards, but they couldn't punch the ball in the end zone. And to their credit, the New York Giants defense has been pretty good all season. Joe Judge, first-year head coach, I think he knows he doesn't have the most talented team, but they play hard every week. Leonard Williams, a player that the Jets gave up on, who they drafted third overall, has been having a pretty good season. He had 2.5 sacks yesterday. The Giants defense had 5 in total. So they're playing with confidence. They've won 3 in a row, and they're in the proverbial catbird seat to win the NFC East. The Cowboys, they have 2 NFC East teams still have to play here in Week 13. The Washington football team will play the Steelers this evening at 6 on Fox, and then the Dallas Cowboys will play the Thursday Night Football on Tuesday that was canceled last week against Baltimore. So I like the Giants to win that division just because they have that 2-game cushion, or they have a game cushion, over Washington, but they also have the tiebreaker over Washington because they've beaten them twice. So the Washington football team at this point would have to get to 6 wins. If the Giants don't win another game, they get 5. Washington would have to win 2 more games, get to 6 to make the playoffs. So the Giants are in good shape and in that division because the Cowboys haven't shown anything to make me believe that they're going to win the division. Or I think they'll play a close game with Baltimore. I don't know if they'll win it, but it'll be interesting here down the stretch. The NFC East, a team with a losing record. If you win your division, you're guaranteed to host a playoff game. So we know that the team in the NFC East will host a playoff game, maybe against Tampa Bay or one of those teams. But one of those teams is going to make the playoffs and host the playoff game. So that's just a crazy thing about the NFL. So that was that crazy game. Philly, we mentioned. Just another game that I thought would be closer, but the Pats blew out the Chargers 45-0 on the road. Cam Newton only threw for 89 yards. He didn't have to play the fourth quarter. Jarrett Stidham came in and played some mop-up duty. But just a couple of things on this game. I'm surprised. I made a couple texts to friends that I thought Anthony Lynn, the head coach of the Chargers, would be fired by the time I recorded this. I'm surprised he hasn't. He'll be fired at the end of the year. They're 3-9. They've been involved in a lot of close games, but you got to win those close games, and he just hasn't. So I'm just shocked he hasn't. You can't lose 45-0 at home. I mean, it's one thing if you have Tom Brady, but Cam Newton threw for 89 yards, and they lost 45-0. If I said that, we played a game, and the other team's quarterback threw for 89 yards, I guarantee you ask anybody on the street, they think, okay, yeah, you won the game, right? No, sorry, Jim, we lost 45-0. It was Justin Herbert's worst game as a pro. He looked like he did at Oregon yesterday. I watched a lot of college football, and when he was drafted that high, I was like, whoa, what's he doing that high? But he's looked great this year. Every quarterback can have a mulligan. That was definitely it yesterday. But the Patriots, to their credit, are 6-6. They're right in the playoff hunt. They have great special teams. Devin McCourty blocked the field goal, returned it for a touchdown. Gunnar Olszewski had a receiving touchdown and a punt return touchdown yesterday. Cam Newton ran for 2 touchdowns. He's got 11 rushing touchdowns on the season. So they're doing a lot of good things. They play, well positionally. They kind of remind me of their division rival, the Miami Dolphins. They don't have great quarterback play. I think they have mediocre quarterback play, but their defense is good and their special teams are great. Miami and New England are 1 and 2 in the NFL in special teams. So they're back in the hunt. They're 500, and with their weapons and who they have, it was surprising people. I'm not surprised. It's New England Patriots. They have Bill Belichick. He's the genius, and he covers up for a lot of liabilities, and their offense has a lot of holes in it. But to his credit, he's done a great job. So kudos New England. They're 6-6, and they look like they could make a run. They have to win some games here. They got the Jets. They got Miami in Week 15 will be the biggest game for Miami and them respectively, just to see if they can make the playoffs, finish second in division behind the Bills. But yeah, New England, they're not the funnest team to watch, but they never have been. So if you go into a New England game expecting it to be really fun, when Tom Brady was there, they weren't. If anybody says the New England Patriots were the funnest team to watch, well, they're not watching very good football. They're not watching anything fun, anything anywhere else, because Tom Brady dinking and dunking to Rex Burkhead, it's effective, but it's definitely not, the funnest thing to watch on television. But good for them. Just to give you guys an update, just an outlook on the playoff picture. So right now in the AFC, the leader is the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're 11-0. They play today, like I mentioned. So I think they'll go 12-0. They'll beat the Washington football team tonight. Then we have the Kansas City Chiefs at 11-1. They got 4 games left. They got a tough one against New Orleans. They got Miami on Sunday. They got the Chargers and the Falcons. So they'll be favored in every game. I think they likely will win out, but you never know. That New Orleans game could be tricky. They're at New Orleans in that game. So they look like they're in good shape. Then we have Buffalo. They play tonight against they're playing San Francisco. The game's in Arizona because they're not allowing sports teams to play in the Bay Area right now. So I think they'll win tonight. They'll improve to 9-3. So they're behind Kansas City and Pittsburgh, by 2 and 3 games respectively. But they're a damn good team, and I think they have a game lead on Miami right now, and Miami has to play Kansas City, so it's a tough one for them. But I think Buffalo will win that division and make a run into the playoffs. And then the 4 seed is Tennessee. They're tied with Indy. It just depends on how the teams stack up. Indy plays Vegas this weekend, like I mentioned, so that's a big game. Tennessee plays Jacksonville, so they get a bit of a breather, but they've been playing some tough football too. So that'll be a battle to the end. They don't play each other again, but losses and wins and how their schedules shake out will really determine that. The wild card positions, like I mentioned, this year the top seed in each conference gets a bye. The other 3 teams will play on wild card weekend, so it's an extra game on wild card weekend. So the wild card teams right now, the first one's Cleveland. They're 9-3. They look like they're in good shape. They're playing great football. I mentioned they have 2 division games left against Baltimore and Pittsburgh, but I think they'll beat Baltimore. I wouldn't be surprised if they give Pittsburgh a run for their money either. I think they'll finish 12-4, 11-5, and they'll be in the playoffs. Next is Miami. Miami is 8-4. They have Kansas City, New England, Buffalo. They have a tough schedule left. And I don't know if they'll be good enough to make the playoffs. That game against New England in Week 15 will be imperative for them. But they need some luck. They need some help from losses from teams like Indy and Tennessee, and just consistent play on offense. We haven't seen that from a Tua-led Dolphins team yet. So I have my druthers about Miami. I think they're a good team, not a great team. So they need some help to make the playoffs, in my opinion. That game against Buffalo in the last week could be pivotal to them making the playoffs. And then the final place right now is Indy. So they're in it right now. And on the outside looking in, we have Vegas at 7-5. They play Indy this week, so they beat Indy. They'll leapfrog them for the last spot in the AFC playoffs. Then we have Baltimore at 6-5, so we'll see how they do tonight. On Tuesday against the Cowboys. They'll be favorited, but they're still missing a lot of players due to COVID. I know Mark Andrews, their starting tight end, has already been ruled out. Calais Campbell's ruled out. Lamar Jackson should be back, but with limited practice time, you never know. And then we have New England at 6-6. So this will really depend, I think, on Miami's the swing team, because I think Indy will make the playoffs, but Miami, if they can if they can beat New England in that game, I think they'll lose to Kansas City. If they can beat New England in that game, that'll be pivotal for them. They have Kansas City, New England, Vegas, which would be another big game, and then Buffalo left. So they have a difficult schedule remaining, but if they can beat New England, I think they'll probably make the playoffs. But then again, Baltimore has an easier schedule, so it's interesting down the stretch here. The playoffs. I like the new system with only one team getting a bye. I didn't understand why two teams got rewarded. If you're second place, yeah, you get a silver medal, but you're also lost. You don't get, it's a regular season's a grind in any sport. So you should get rewarded for being the best in the regular season. The NFC, New Orleans, currently leading at 10-2. They only have a game lead over Green Bay, who's 9-3. Followed by the Rams, who had a big win yesterday over division rival Arizona, which I predicted, so good on me. They're 8-4. I don't trust them as far as I can throw them. They leapfrog Seattle. They do play, those teams play each other one more time, so that'll be a pivotal game. But the Rams actually play Thursday night against New England, so huge game for both teams. A short week for both, but that'll be a big rematch of the Super Bowl in 2018. And then the 4 seed in the NFC is the 5-7 New York Giants. They're in the NFC East, so they lead their conference. That means they're the 4 seed. So crazy. And then the wildcard teams, first team is Seattle at 8-4. They've been inconsistent all year. I don't trust them. I think they'll make the playoffs just because there aren't enough good teams in the NFC to leapfrog them. They play the Rams again, so they could still win the division, which I think they might. But I think the Rams, top to bottom, are a better team than them. But Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, they have a much more explosive offense. And when you have a better quarterback, you always have a chance to win. That's followed by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are on a bye week this week. They're 7-5. They have an easier schedule. They have Atlanta twice. They play Minnesota this weekend, which is actually a big game because Minnesota is now the final seed in the NFC. Minnesota, I think they'll make the playoffs. They've been right there all year. They're 6-6. They won in overtime yesterday against Jacksonville. Kirk Cousins is never a quarterback you want to put 100% of your faith in. But they got Justin Jefferson, a rookie wide receiver, is a stud. Adam Thielen, another stud. Delvin Cook. They have, if you look at their offense, you're like, why are they 6-6? So if Kirk Cousins can find his game a bit, if they can beat Tampa Bay, that would be big for them moving forward. Outside looking in, we got Arizona at 6-6. They've lost 3 in a row. Since Kyler hurt his shoulder, he really hasn't looked like the same player. And their team has been decimated with injuries. Their defense is out. Larry Fitzgerald has missed the last 2 weeks because of COVID, and he might not be what he used to be, but he's still missed. He's a leader. He's a reliable target. And then also we have San Francisco at 5-6. They play tonight against Buffalo. So, they've lost Jimmy Garoppolo, lost starting tight end George Kittle, but yet they still have a chance to make the playoffs. So if they can find a couple good games here, pull off an upset tonight, they're in the race. And then Chicago and Detroit. They played a game yesterday where Detroit scored 2 touchdowns in the final minute and 18 seconds. Detroit will do this. They won't make the playoffs, but they'll do enough so that they get a really bad draft pick. And, just they'll be like the Toronto Maple Leafs for all those years where they finished ninth in the Eastern Conference. Or in baseball, it was always the Seattle Mariners. They've been doing that for it seems like 15 years for Seattle. Other than their great year where they won 108, they always finish like 2 games out of the race in the AFC wildcard, in the AL wildcard, and it's you're stuck in mediocrity. You're not good, you're not bad, you're just right in the middle, and that's, in my opinion, that's the worst place you can be, because you're not getting better, but you're not getting worse. You're just stuck there. So that's where the NFL's looking right now. We got some games this week, and we got 4 weeks left. A couple Saturday games next weekend, so a week from Saturday, 2 Saturday games. There's going to be a game on Christmas, so the schedule flexes out a little bit as we make towards the home stretch of the season. This week we got lucky because there was no real COVID problems in the NFL, a few cases. But hopefully everything can stay copacetic and we can get to the finish line here into the playoffs, because obviously the world's been struggling with COVID. The States, it's bad. But, I just hope that the players realize that they're really close to being done here and sacrifice a little bit now so that they can hopefully have a reward down the line. In other news, the NHL still hasn't agreed to play or not to play. There's a lot of rumors about a possible 56 or 52 game season. My prediction is it'll be a 48 game season, like any lockout season. And there will be a Canadian division. So all 7 Canadian teams will be in one division. You'll probably see Toronto play, Montreal, Ottawa like 10 times each, which I don't love. I like to watch every team play each other, but it's a different year, so I'll watch hockey if it's there. So that's the news there. Nothing official. When it does happen, I'll be down here to break it down. We'll definitely have a preview show of the NHL season. I'm not worried about them not playing. They'll be playing, I think, by mid-January. So hopefully everything goes well there. The NBA is starting their preseason games this Friday, and their season starts on December 22nd with the Brooklyn Nets playing against Golden State and the Clippers playing the Lakers. So that'll be Kevin Durant's first game back after 18 months 18 plus months of being out of action. So that'll be interesting. Five game NBA games that for Christmas, and football, and then the World Juniors. Canada heard that Lexi Lafreniere will not be going. The United States heard that Jack Hughes will not be allowed to go. But the tournament is still the best part of Christmas for me, so I'm really looking forward to it. We'll be covering it extensively here on To The Point, giving you breakdowns of the teams, players to watch, and it's a great tournament. It's a lot of fun to talk about, and it's really, as a country, it defines Christmas in Canada. So tomorrow night, me and Seamus will be doing our second episode of The Observers, breaking down episodes 3 and 4 of the Fox show Next. Hopefully you can tune in to watch that with us. But this week I'll be doing a few podcasts about the episode, the games Monday night and the Tuesday nighter of football. I'm going to try to do a UFC show later in the week about UFC 256 this weekend. So keep your eyes out. There'll be lots of content coming your way. Hope you all had a great weekend. Have a great week, and we'll talk soon.